is that I've never seen anyone, it's really a terrifying thing. I've never seen anyone get away with anything, ever. The chickens always come home to roost. So, and sometimes it might, let's say you get away with something. It's like, yeah, you think so, man. You wait 5 years from now, 7 years from now, it'll come back.
Is that karma?
It's more like, yes, I think it's the same idea, but it's more like you don't have the power to manipulate reality. Like you have the power to bring about reality in some sense, because you confront potential, and through your actions and your communicative intent, you turn potential into reality. But you don't have the power to bend reality without it snapping back at you.
You don't think so? So you don't think visionaries and influencers have the ability to bend reality?
No, I don't think they bend it. I think that they I mean, you can bring new things into being, but you can't get away with a falsehood. No, you can definitely bring new things into being.
You can't get away with a falsehood.
Yes, that's it.
Maybe, okay, makes sense.
And you can't get away with weak thinking either, because, I mean, any more than you can get away with improper action. It just doesn't work. So you're contending, it's why, I mean, one of the themes in my writing is the danger of falsehood. And at every level, it's like, well, if you tell the truth to the degree that you can, or at least don't lie, I think that's rule 8, then you have reality on your side. You got to decide, man, you want reality on your side, or do you want reality against you? Now, I wouldn't recommend the whole reality against you thing, because you're not going to win. You're going to get flattened. And so I'm very careful with what I say, and I'm very careful with what I write. Like I try to, if I write something down, it's not an opinion. I mean, obviously it is, because it's my thought.
Sure.
But I try to take those sentences and beat them to death. I'm trying only to leave on the paper things I cannot get under and flip over. So, and that's with literally it's every sentence.
Yeah, because it seems like for the most part, when you're sitting with these interviews and people are asking you questions about whatever topic having to do with politics, it seems like you've recited that answer 50 times to somebody. Like, da-da-da-da-da. You're just kind of dancing with them. And like, say there's a series of 1,000 questions. It's like an actor who's role-played these things so much, except you're not the actor. You're a real-life person that believes these things that you're reciting back to people, because it's been stored here for a while. So it doesn't seem like anything's coming off the cuff. It seems like this has been already thought about and talked about for yourself.
Yeah, I try not to answer questions that I haven't thought about.
Well, here's a question for you. I mean, you've been viewed a few billion times. What do you not know a lot about that if asked about, you don't really have that strong of an opinion or research on those topics?
Physics.
Really?
Quantum physics.
Okay.
No, mathematics.
Mathematics.
No, I'm not particularly smart mathematically. I've had students who were very gifted mathematically.
Wow, piano, I would have thought you would have been a math guy, because
No.
piano somewhat is a math
No,
formula.
my math intelligence is pretty average. So, I mean, there's lots of things I don't know much about. I don't know much about economics. Now, I'm not sure anyone knows much about economics, but they might. But as a technical science, I certainly don't know much about it. So there's plenty of room, there's plenty of places where I'm, woefully ignorant. I don't know nearly as much about history as I should. It's quite embarrassing, really.
Book a day and you don't know a lot about history. I think you're probably downplaying yourself.
Well, there's a lot to know. And, I know enough history to know to have some sense of what I don't know. And man, it's a big expanse.
Fair.
I'd like to know a lot more.
Why don't we talk about what you do talk a lot about? Men. You talk a lot about, what's going on right now with men. And for me, like, I'll ask this question maybe in a way that will get a different perspective for you. For me, I grew up with a father that taught a lot of the stuff you write in your book, The 12 Rules for Life. Stand up straight. My dad's, people ask me, what has your dad told you the most? Never be afraid of the truth. If I tell you how many times, I don't even know how many times. He's probably told me that thing 1,000,000 times. Never be afraid of the truth. Just say, never be afraid. And it's part of your, one of the rules of life, rules for life. So,
see, I think it's wrong. You should be afraid of the truth, but you should be more afraid of falsehood. See, and I mean, that's no criticism of your dad's advice. But people are afraid of the truth because often if you reveal it, it causes conflict in the moment.
All day long.
Oh, yes, certainly.
All day long. Oh, sometimes they don't even want to know it.
Oh, very often.
Sometimes it's very scary to even know about it.
Yeah, otherwise it's trivial.
But life is boring if we don't pursue that side. I mean, what do you do if you go living not wanting to pursue the truth? To me, it's kind of like, what is the purpose if we're not at least trying to test our own beliefs to see if we are thinking right or not? If we're not thinking right, what the hell is the purpose of this life? Then we're just got 80 years to be here and be gone. We may as well have a little bit of friction to try to figure it out.
Telling the truth is definitely an adventure. And so if you want an adventure, that's a good one.
Seeking the truth or telling the truth?
Both.
Okay.
But seeking for sure, but also telling.
What do you mean by that? Telling the truth is an adventure.
Look. So, one of the things that you're counseled to do, let's say if you do a lot of media interviews, is to figure out what it is that you want to accomplish with the media interview.
Okay.
Right? So you have a goal. It's like, here's what I want to accomplish with this interview. And potentially there's some use in that. But another way of going about it is to just say what you think and see what happens. That's an adventure, because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. So look, there's this old idea that it's necessary to have faith in the truth. And so here's a way of thinking about that. Someone asks you a question and you might think, well, here's the outcome I want, and so here's how I'm going to answer that question. So that's one way of approaching it. But another way of approaching it is, you ask me a question, I'm going to think about the answer, and I'm just going to tell you what I think. And it doesn't matter what the outcome is, because I'm willing to see what the outcome will be, predicated on the idea that there isn't a better outcome than the one that truth produces. Even if it's harsh and terrible in the short term, and sometimes it is, it's like there isn't a better way of doing it. Now, you might say, well, how do you know that? And the answer is, well, I don't know that. That's why it's an article of faith, because I believe, and I believe this deeply, the being that you produce as a consequence of telling the truth is good, by definition.
But
even though it's harsh and often uncomfortable, because you get in trouble.
Yes, but your faith, to me, seems very mathematical. Like when I see your answers about your faith, like you say, I choose to believe that there is a God, but I don't know. So it's a very logical answer you're given, right?
I said act as if God exists.
Act as if God exists.
Which is a good definition of belief as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, believing in something you have not yet seen, right? You see the definition.
Well, it's what you stake yourself on.
Right.
Like you think, well, how do you know if you believe something? Well, the answer is you stake your life on it. That's how you know. And that's something, I suppose, to the degree that I've been able to, I've staked my life on. It's like, well, do I believe it? Well, it depends on what you mean. I'm acting it out. I'm putting myself on the line. So that seems to be a reasonable definition of belief. If someone says, do you think there's a God in heaven? It's like, well, I don't know how to answer that question because I don't know exactly what you mean.
That's what I'm saying. The logical part to me is more honest. I think the logical side of it is more of an honest way of looking at it, saying it's a bet. I don't know. I'm not 100%, but I'm betting there is. If I was to bet to see if there is or there isn't, my bet is, yes, there is. That's the life I want to live, and I think I'm living a better life if I believe there is.
Well, there's psychological elements that are associated with that too that are important. So one of the things I learned from Carl Jung, whom I have great respect for, is that we necessarily exist inside a hierarchy of values. And that manifests itself all the time, because in order to act,
if you don't live in a really dense...
Who's in charge here?
I'm gonna tell you how this guy founded the
in order to act, things have to come to a point, right? For you to do something, you have to decide at that moment that that thing is more important to do than anything else that you're doing. And it isn't only how you act, it's even how you perceive. Because when you look at the world, you look at some things, one thing, rather than all the other things you could look at. So even to look at something, and this is technically true, you have to value the thing that you're looking at. Okay, so you're always using values to interact with the world, perceptually and in terms of action. Now those values are organized. Otherwise you're a chaotic mess. So they're organized. There's some consistency in what you do, right? There's a narrative driving it. That's another way of looking at it. It means you exist inside a value hierarchy. Some things are more important than others. Some of the things that are important to you are even more important than other things that are important
to other people.
Yes, well, to you,
sure,
to other people, period.
Right.
But you're pointing towards something. Now, you might be fragmented and pointing to a bunch of contradictory things, but that's not helpful. Let's assume that you're a reasonably integrated person.
Okay.
And so you're pursuing something of value. It's at the top of your hierarchy. Functionally speaking, whatever that is at the top of your hierarchy, that's God for you. And you might say, well, I don't believe in God. It's like, well, yeah, but you still have,
something that's your God.
You have an ultimate value that performs the function that a deity would perform.
I agree with that.
Yeah.